Okay, so we are on our way to Goa for the EO event that's taking place tomorrow evening. And instead of taking a flight, we decided to drive down. A couple of reasons. One is amazing weather. Second, amazing weather to drive, not to fly. The second is, when you go on a flight to a place like Goa, you wake up in the morning, there is a hurry to get to the airport, then there's a hustle and bustle of the airport. And then you are in a metal pipe, you land at the other end, there's again hustle and bustle of finding your luggage. Your cadence of life is running at like 100 beats a minute. When you drive down to a place like Goa, then when you get out of Bombay, there is that hitch pitch in the morning, there's rush, again that cadence. But when you start hitting the highway, like we are right now in the Atal Setu, one of the most beautiful bridges in India, then slowly the traffic becomes lesser and lesser. And as you are maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes, your cadence actually slows down. And that's the zone in which you start thinking. You start, I think, driving, and to a greater extent, riding a motorcycle, one of the best ways to meditate, because your body is occupied and your thoughts are free. And when you do it for a few hours, by the time you reach your holiday destination, you've actually had a cadence being slowed and being brought down to a state in which you can really enjoy that holiday and the time of downtime. No, you see actually that Bombay Pune, where the Pune turn happens, they have put tires on the side, which means that so many people have, you can make out, people have crashed into it. I'll show you where it comes out. It comes out in the service lane. So this is what I meant when I said that, after you travel a little bit of distance, like right now we are in this road and you can see maybe one auto rickshaw, that also a really pretty dressed up local one. But you don't see that hitch pitch of the traffic. It's empty roads, amazing waterfalls, lot of green all around you. Green is a soothing color for the eye. So you start unwinding. This is actual unwinding. This is the story. Basically, till 1940s, after the Second World War, both US and USSR, the two blocks, they were competing on the nuclear race. And once USSR also got the nuclear race, the next race became the space race. And there actually Soviet Union had the lead, because Soviet Union was the first one to launch the Sputnik satellite, was the first to launch animal, a living creature, like the dog, and the first to actually get a man on space, Yuri Gagarin. So when this race was going on, there'd be a lot of anecdotes and jokes we were told as kids about how superior Russia is and how intelligent they are and stuff like that. And one of the stories which was very popular was that the US spent $100,000 or whatever amount, lots of money, in trying to develop a ballpoint pen or an ink pen that would work in space, because obviously the ink wouldn't work in zero gravity. And they spent months and years trying to figure it out, and they spent a lot of money. And the Russians just used a pencil. And that used to be a very, tongue-in-cheek way of showing how smart the Russians were, because instead of wasting money on trying to make a ballpoint pen that worked in space, they just used a pencil. But that superficial line or a joke which showed how the Russians were smarter was actually not true, because there was a reason why the Americans were spending that kind of money. Even they could have used a pencil, but there was a reason why they were spending that money, because what they were trying to solve was how to move liquids in zero gravity. And the technology that they got in terms of getting a ballpoint pen with a gel to work in space was exactly the same technology that they used later on in fiber optics and many other applications of hydraulics. This idea of telling a story or narrating an experiment and taking a lesson from it, which seems very superficial, is often flawed, because it's only when you go into the second order of thinking that you really discover the wisdom behind these stories. Otherwise, they just end up at a superficial level where all you're learning is an anecdote, but not the depth of that story. All right, so I was talking about learning storytelling from movies. Appaji, that's my father, was quite strict. He, amongst many of his other, things that he taught me, one was the love for movies, and he was considered to be a really cool dad in my school, because he used to come to school to take me to see a film, many films, many war films, The Bridge on River Kwai, and many movies which are considered to be Guns of Neveron, Force 10 from Neveron. And they used to play at 3:30 in the afternoon those days, so you had to
actually be taken from school. And my dad used to do that. And from then on, I have always loved films in terms of understanding storytelling, psychology, human behavior, history. Two, three things fascinated me. One was that what would be a movie's loco standi to be, as they say, right to win business. And one was the zeitgeist. What is happening at that point of time? And if you look back in the early days of our independence, most of the movies reflected that need for independence, consolidation, solidarity. And after that, there was an era of Naya Dor, which spoke about the fight between human labor and industrialization. So the pushback. So for a country to become what it became in terms of industrialization or any sort of a transformation, there'll always be a pushback. And the films of that era, the novels, the plays will reflect that. And after that, you had the 70s when there was an era of roti kapda or makan, which were the essential, asks of the people. And then there was also a phase in 90s where maybe it was because of the economic boom, where the narrative was nobody really knew hero करता क्या है apart from Ashki. Hero का job वॉब क्या है, nobody really seemed, है ना, चांदनी वगैरह में क्या करता है ऋषि कपूर, किसी को नहीं मालूम. Helicopter में बस Ashki करता है, हाँ, बाजीगर, all these movies that maybe reflect. And then suddenly you had this small localized films about Mere Baap Ki Maruti or Vicky Donor, which spoke about a story which was very relatable to. And you find that the zeitgeist is always reflected in the movies. And if you see the movies of a certain era, what made it a hit, and I'm sure this is true for rock bands and albums of a certain era, you would understand what makes that generation of people tick, what makes that group of people tick. You understand not just by say listening to the rhythm of music or something like that, but understanding the history behind. And movies are great in that. And a great example I'll give you is James Bond. I mean, nobody needs to be introduced to this protagonist. If you actually study the evolution of Bond, beginning from, and if I say this, I don't know, you may have to bleep this out literally. There's a character in one of the Bond films called Galore. And from a protagonist who was considered to be the epitome of machismo and, the suave, tough spice, heavy smoker, heavy womanizer hero, has transformed today to a non-smoker, single relationship father, but of course, in whose internal organs drugs are found at times, and at times alcohol also. But other than that, cleaned up in some of his earlier behaviors. These are all portrayals of what the society considers to be its role model today. If you study films, you actually learn a lot. You learn about storytelling, you learn about human psychology, you learn science fiction frameworks and how to break frameworks. It's a great educational tool. Even if the story is fiction, it has to be based on enough reality for it to be believable. That's the reason why I would urge watching films in a structured way, in an intelligent way, actually should be part of your learning repertoire. I went to attend this session by a gentleman inside. He is a black belt, I think 5 dan or something, or really high up there in Aikido. And he told me this story about how he learned Aikido. So apparently in his younger days, he was fascinated, as most of us were, with actors and cricketers, mostly cricketers. One easy way, apparently, for him to get access to cricketers was as staff in the clubs in five-star hotels as the security people. So they would hire smart looking people who would handle these lumpen elements and try to get inside. So he was taken for that. He was a tough guy from way before. He said that you couldn't hammer up those guys, you couldn't beat those guys because obviously you can't beat up a guy. You had to learn how to sort of lock them into a place and use holds and locks rather than strikes. And that's why he learned Aikido. So he actually gave a very interesting depth to it by saying that we are all often taught fight or flight, but you have an art form which is about negotiate. You are neither fighting nor are you flying, but you are negotiating. That look, don't escalate this. When you put a person on a chokehold, for example, you are actually suggesting that you can de-escalate here. You don't have to take it further. You're both testing each other's strength and you're exhibiting your willingness to inflict pain. And that I think is the key. It's not that who is stronger.
It is who is willing to go how far to inflict pain on the other. And there is a balance there, because if one side inflicts too much pain on the other side, then the other side will be compelled to retaliate in a desperate bid to survive. So
you will sit in the front. Same price per user. As you heard from the bio, I've had a fairly unusual career. I've spent about 12 years in the armed forces, another 20 years in corporates, 5 years in the bureaucracy also, working with the government, from the government side. So a lot of my friends ask me this question, which one of these three careers was the most difficult one? And I tell them, I can't give the answer to that one, but the easiest one was the army. Yeah, because in the army, at least you knew which side your enemy is. In most corporate settings and bureaucracy especially, you don't know hai kahan.
One shortly, shall we?
okay, we are starting at 8:10 from Ganpatipule, and we are first going to go to the temple and then head back to Bombay. As of now, showing us 3 o'clock arrival. By the way, I'm wearing this as a medallion for the last. Whatever.
It also has medicinal value. You hold an asthma here. This
Good.
Durva.
When I bought that GS, the first modification they do is the horn.
The horn.
Because they say the original horn is like a tweet.
Yeah.
Beep.
Yeah.
Just to let people,
Yeah.
And here you need to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people won't turn because half the time they're on their phone or headphones. There was this movie called Kala Patthar in the 70s. It was a mining accident. A very big, famous movie. Amitabh Bachchan, Shashi Kapoor, Shatrughan, the top 3 actors of that time. All 3 in the same movie. It was also the first time that in Bollywood there was a Hollywood technician brought. There have been some examples of actors coming and playing and all, but this was the first time that a technician was a sound technician. So the opening scene of the movie is a mountain and there is a silhouette of the workers going to work. It's a silhouette against the rising sun. I'm forgetting his name. He said that had it been a Hollywood audience, I would have left the grandeur of the scene just overwhelmed the audience and I wouldn't have put any sound. But because it's an Indian audience, I have to put sound in the beginning. So there's this chattering of people speaking, clanking of the tools and all of that stuff.
Otherwise, they'll think the movie's not working.
Yeah, otherwise the people will start whistling in the theatre. Say, yeah, the sound is not working. So because very common. It's very common.
Yeah.
And I remember when we used to watch movies, suddenly the sound would go off.
Yeah.
And the only way the people had of letting the cameraman know is by hooting and howling.
Yeah.
Because in the projection room, there are 2 projectors. The guy turns on one projector and he's, not on his phone those days, but he's goofing off.
Yeah.
So it's only when he hears this commotion happening in the theatre that he'll just get up and check what's wrong. Right? That necessity of sound as a playback. Matter of fact, when we were in Ferrari, one of the questions I asked them was this, that the Ferrari's claim to fame was its engine, the internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
Right? Now it is not the internal combustion engine, it's a bloody motor. You can get anyone, then that way though you might as well get Michael Jackson to design a tune if it is only sound.
Yeah.
Right? Or whoever, the latest singer. Say you design a tune for my car. Doesn't make sense. Because it's not the same thing anymore. I don't know how they're going to tackle that. Play pen they have.
Thanks a ton for watching the video. This is a new format we are trying of exchanging stories while we are traveling on a road trip. If you liked it, I would wish you let me know in the comments. And if you have any other ideas, then we would like to incorporate it. And if this turns out well, we are hoping to do this with every road trip that we do. So looking forward to see you in the next trip.